Okay, then.
Well, we were just told this meeting is being recorded by Zoom, so we must be recording, which means welcome to everybody for another edition of Sacred Anarchies, a post-church podcast. We're so excited to be with you today. And not only are we with all of you, but we are with my fabulous best friend, co-host, co-creator, colleague, co-conspirator, co-pilot. Did I say co-creator?
Cooperator, commiserator.
Commiserator. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, commodificationator.
Did I say co-conspirator?
Yeah, I think you did. Well, you did now.
There we go. Not co-opter. We won't say co-opter.
No.
No.
Coco Chanel.
Coco Van.
Coco. Coconut water.
Didn't we have Coco Van recently? Is that what we ate when we were at?
You did.
Well, it was fantastic.
Yeah, at that French bistro in London.
I know.
I just had poulet rôti.
I think you had beef. How do you say that? I can never, it doesn't roll off the tongue.
No, I had poulet rôti.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, now that we've had our fill of French food and words that start with co, how are you, Dad?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you? How's New York?
New York's great. New York is sunny and beautiful. We're meeting lots of people. Well, Simon's meeting lots of people, and he's doing really, really well. My conservative, introverted, British, sensible husband is doing very well around these loud New York Italians that say things like, forget about it, and coffee, and talk, and chocolate, and water, and how you doing? And he's doing remarkably well. He is rising to every single occasion. So I'm just so proud of him. But yeah, we're doing good. And that is why our podcast is out on Wednesday this week and Wednesday from last week, because I forget how hard it is with the time difference with you to kind of get our schedules to match up. This is why I came to England at the beginning of the pandemic, because I knew we had to be in the same time zone to get things going. And it was true.
Yeah, I'm sure that must be true.
Well, part of it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm used to you just being available. And
hello, I think I have been available. It might be that the shoe is on the other foot, actually.
Like, at 5 p.m.
Let's just blah, 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 blah. What are we talking about today anyway?
Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe this will be a quick little conversation. Maybe it won't be, but an interesting thing. So if you are listening to this podcast today, odds are that you subscribe to other similar podcasts. Odds are that you listen to Micah Murray's podcast, which is the Existential Happy Hour. Love Micah. I've known him for a few years, and I absolutely love the work he's doing. He's a brilliant creator and theologian and writer. If you're not following him on both of those Instagram feeds, Micah J. Murray and Existential Happy Hour, definitely do it because it's super, super quality. But I was on his podcast last week, I believe, is when he released it. We recorded it a couple months ago, and he's a fellow post-theist, doing a lot of stuff within religious naturalism and a little bit of radical theology, but definitely very much centrally located in post-theist theology. And so we had a lot of good stuff to talk about. And you know me, Baz, always talking about what it looks like to pursue theological realities and theological narratives as opposed to empirical ones, because I just think they're utterly and insanely more helpful and have more opportunity to create meaning and transformation. And so we had about an hour-long conversation about all of this stuff. And so he's promoting it. He's been promoting it the last few weeks on his Instagram handle, and he's been tagging me on my personal handle. So I've been getting all the notifications of comments. And yesterday, I had an interesting comment from someone who claims to be an atheist, at least in their handle. I won't kind of put him on blast. It wasn't mean or disrespectful or rude comment, but I think it's very, very telling of the atheist-theist divide, and very much a good example of why we pursue post-theism and the future of post-theism. But anyway, so I wanted to chat with you about this comment and get some of your thoughts on what I just said. So the comment was, so you have to go to Micah's handle or his podcast handle, because he is putting a little soundbite about 60 seconds, something I said about theological versus empirical realities. And so this person said, I've not listened to the episode yet, which you probably want to listen to the episode before you make a proper comment. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. He said, I think I understand what she's saying, but it sounds like she's more interested in maintaining a narrative rather than engaging with reality. I'm not shaming anyone who still has faith, just that it seems she's abandoned the need for evidence in favor of manipulating what she was raised with, so it evolves with her. I don't know, maybe it's the difference between being raised more mainstream and fundamentalist. I'll have to check out the episode. And I actually responded once, deleted it, responded a second time, and I said at so-and-so, important things to be said about narrative and reality and how they fit together. However, once you listen to the podcast, I'm here for further discussion if you would like. And he liked it, actually, or she liked it. I don't know if it's a he,
Right.
But did not comment back. So, but of course, it's. I know he didn't mean to offend, but it is slightly offensive when someone says, you're not engaged in reality, because the whole reason why someone or people like us move from theism or a certain that vein of Christianity is so that we can better engage and pursue reality, while also kind of holding in the balance of a particular narrative that we've lived out, truly wanting to see it evolve, truly wanting to see it be made meaningful. But that's also a choice that I made. There are lots of people who move from traditional Christianity and they're just done with Christianity in general. And that's okay. And we honor that. And we say that is great. And that's what you've chosen. And that is what is right for you. For me, I'm still very much interested in Christianity in the world and in the future.
Yeah.
And so I do think there is, and I do think at the center of our work is that idea of the faith narrative and reality. But I think herein lies the rub of the whole militant new atheist thing.
Well,
I mean, give narrative a total backseat and really doesn't give it the value in human life that it deserves, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, I think it's not giving, it's also not giving empirical reality the justice that it deserves, because part of the scope of empirical reality is that it's partly constituted by the infinite number of possible worlds. I mean, that's also a part of empirical reality, the awareness and the acknowledgement, and only one of those is the actual world. So within empirical reality, it's not just a taste and touch understanding.
It's not just a sensory experience.
No, it can actually encompass more than that. I mean, but I do think that the problem with the whole conversation, really, when it comes right down to it, is that faith has been transferred, and what has become faith and religion now is science-based logic about the nature of reality, rather than a kind of grappling with the complexity and contradictions of what it means to be human. I don't even really see any. I mean, I get where you're coming from with the way you talk about, the differentiation that you make, but I think when somebody sort of addresses empirical reality from a one-dimensional perspective, as this, and I can't judge that comment any more than they can't really judge your.
Well, and we've taken the comment from the empirical author, haven't we? Like, we've kind of placed it like in a realm, like, let's just deal with this kind of like, who knows what he actually really thinks. And I'm sure they're very nice.
And as you said, I don't think it was particularly hostile, but it just was. It's that thing, though, that happens all the time, where we seem to think that the best way forward in life is to make sure that our side of the story is heard, with the presumption that our side of the story is probably right. I don't know. I mean, I
think, there's so much I want to say. So I think, not at the total risk of oversimplifying postmodernity, I think this is kind of one of the sins of postmodernity, if we can even use that word, is that the idea of narrative and meta-narrative, and that there would be something that connects us, and there would be a narrative lens through which, you know, our epistemology grows, and through which we come to know things, and through which we're transformed, while that narrative itself is being formed and transformed, really is sort of poo-pooed, I guess, because that would mean that there is something overarching connecting us. And postmodernity has kind of moved us away from, you know, thinking in those kinds of terms. But I think there is a way to hold well in balance and intention reality and narrative, in kind of a cyclical relationship. I think they're both kind of needed to engage life, understand life, to grow and transform, and all of those things. And I think, you know, like you, I like the way you described reality, because I often will say empirical reality. When I say that, I mean like interpreting the world in one particular kind of way, in a way that is scientific and logical and rational. And this often makes its way into faith and Christianity, and it's just impossible to talk about anything that is mystical and transcendental in nature in an empirical way. But the way you talk about reality kind of opens it all up, to be, you know, multiple different layers and levels, and, you know, just a multiplicity of realities that are just kind of layered and understood and engaged. And I would be comfortable with that. I'd say that as well. But I do think the whole rub with the atheist and the new atheist piece is the idea that, well, regardless of what you say about narrative or story or faith, the reality of the situation is this, and this is how we're going to engage it. And, you know, I don't think I've ever been accused of holding on to the Christian narrative or allowing it to evolve as our community evolves, as our culture evolves, as our world. I don't think I've ever been accused of holding that as a bit of a crutch, like I would need it. I don't think I need it. And I think we all have to come to the point where we decide we don't need it, but that we want it or we don't want it. We want to continue to pursue it in a particular kind of way, or we don't. So, but I am very interested for him to listen to the entire, or her again.
Yeah, and it might be interesting after that to have a conversation, and actually, because then there would be ground for talking about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, for me, is, and you know, I've said this to you probably more times. You're probably sick of hearing it, but I just don't believe that. I do not believe in the single answer to all of reality equation. I just do not, and I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's philosophical, psychoanalytical, theological, scientific. I don't think that one field of discourse can encompass the whole of reality. I think that's a holdover from a different world. I think it's just a trope, not a trope, but it's an idea that we've locked ourselves into, as at least in the West, but probably within humanity for a long time. And personally, I think that, you know, I've read a lot over the last number of years. You know, postmodernism gets a lot of crap from people. You know, there are very, like, people like Zizek, you know, very dismissive of post.
Did I just give it too much crap for your liking?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. But I think actually, I'm actually a fan of postmodernism.
I'm not a fan.
No, and I wasn't addressing your comment about it at all. Actually, I'd forgotten you even mentioned it. I was just thinking that what I think is interesting about postmodernism is, well, firstly, I think it's grossly misunderstood, for the most part. But secondly, I think it opens up the contingency of all explanations of reality in a way that's very hopeful and promising for the kind of world that we live in. You know, most people sort of think it relativizes everything, and relativity is not a component of that equation. It's more of an aesthetic understanding and view of life. I mean, postmodernism has its roots in aesthetics, not in philosophy or other things. It emerged out of architecture. You know what I mean? So but I think one of the problems when people hear something and they have a prejudice, and that can be a, you know, not a benign prejudice. I don't mean an angry prejudice, but they don't hold to that view. It's very easy to just sort of pit your view against somebody else's view and create the same ping pong argument that happens all the time, and they sort of feed each other. And I think we have to sort of adopt a different position. And I think the last thing that I think you do, or that you're doing, I think, is trying to hold on to some lifeline of Christianity, like it's the last rope to swing on before, you know, you fall into the burning fires of hell or something. I don't know. I think you're actually, when you're talking about the narrative, you're talking about I mean, I think it's a bit like, I think in some ways it's your way of echoing what somebody like Jack Caputo says when he talks about what's going on under the name of God, you know, what's happening in there, and what can be teased out. That's how I see your, I could be wrong, but that's how I interpret. That's what I think you're doing.
Well, and you'd be right. You'd be right. So I think if someone wants to say that radical theologians are unnecessarily holding on to a particular narrative of Christianity,
I don't know what that narrative would be.
yeah, no, I don't know what that narrative would be, because there's sort of nothing but, you know, the opposite, the upside down, the nothing of God, and the, you know, the unexistence of God, really.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's really, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just, you know, I
also think, sorry, I also think that's the nature of some of the work we do, because it really can't be pinned down. So it is open to misinterpretation.
I don't think it should be pinned down. This is my point about, you know, I just don't think things, you know, I don't think the world needs another master plan, actually.
Well, it doesn't need another category when it comes.
It doesn't. Yeah, and it doesn't need a master plan. In fact, I don't think there are such things as master plans. I just think we dress them up like master plans, but they're really not.
Yeah.
And I just think it creates more trouble than it's worth, and more trouble than it's worth. Not more trouble than it's worth, but just generates trouble. I've been reading actually this fascinating book called Medium Design. It's by
great cover. If anybody who's listening to this, head to the YouTube channel and check out the cover of this book.
It's written by a woman named Keller Easterling. She's a professor of architecture at Yale. And it's a book about how design can help to reframe the way we think about life by looking not at objects, but the spaces between objects, like what goes on between things.
Wow, fascinating.
It's a stunning book. In fact, I think it's probably one of the most interesting books I've read in a while, that I can just make all of these theological connections to. And she doesn't deal, there is not a trace. It's a book about architecture and design.
Yeah.
It's a rich book. And she sort of in a very different way to me, sort of basically talks about the binaries that we're caught in, because we look at we're always looking at the objects and not what goes on between the objects. So, and she talks a lot about politics and things like that. She talks about how in a binary world we respond to things, and in responding to things, we actually fuel the very thing that we're protesting. You know, so she goes, something happens, you have to protest. The protest feeds the thing that you're protesting against and makes it grow.
Wow.
And she's not advocating non-action. She's advocating a different kind of action that doesn't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And that to her is what she calls medium design. And that's where she's sort of taken that, I think, from, I haven't got that far yet, but from Marshall McLuhan, where the medium is the message. So it's not the object, it's what occurs because of the object. You know, so McLuhan was like, you know, you take the car. Well, the medium is what happens because of the car. You get roads, you get gas stations, you get garages, you get mechanics, you get travel, you get all of that's the medium. That's what happens because of the object. So her whole thing is that's the space to rethink the world. And the designers have that inbuilt mechanism. I mean, she's writing really to architects and designers and saying, you have another way of looking at the world.
Yeah. Wow.
But
I love that. If you apply that to religion and kind of philosophical, that would be kind of an interesting rabbit hole to go down. I'll get the book. I'll take a look at it. We'll podcast on it.
Yeah. It's a great, I think it's a great book anyway. And she's got some very interesting talks on YouTube. She seems like a very interesting woman. But there again, most women are interesting. Infinitely more interesting than most men. That's all I'm going to say. But, well, you know, I don't want to be too gender binary, do I?
No.
There are interesting people out there. Many of them are fantastic women of all stripes, people of all stripes.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps us up for today.
Oh, really? All right then.
Everything in there but the kitchen sink.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about kitchen sinks then. Is it side by side or just one big one? Is it a farmhouse kitchen sink or is it, you know?
God, a farmhouse kitchen sink would be glorious, wouldn't it?
See.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone, this week. We love seeing you. Well, we love you seeing us, I guess. We love being a part of your life.
Actually, I don't love people seeing me. You love people seeing us. I don't mind being heard.
Just so we're clear, I love people seeing you. I think Barry Taylor is something to behold.
Yeah, it's an object to be like, oh my God, what is that?
Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically.
Oh, did I tell you that somebody asked me if I was the lead singer of Guns N' Roses the other day?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, and then somebody this morning asked me if I was a fashion designer.
Well.
And then they said, and I said, no, why? And they said, well, because you wear unusually colorful clothes for a man. So I just said, you've been hanging around the wrong men. Never afraid of pink.
There's a good reason to watch us on YouTube and not just on a podcast platform. So head to our YouTube channel to see Barry's utterly fabulous top he's wearing today and his very cool background, which is his flat. And there we go. We got the kitchen sink in there.
There you go.
So we're done.
We're done. We're out. Done. Bye, everybody.
We'll see everyone next week for another edition of Sacred Anarchies. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Toodaloo.
Bye.